What's happening, people? Welcome back to Out of the Loop. Thank you for joining me. So today I'm going to show you how to make this sick wide bass. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try again. This sick wide bass. Okay, cool. So yeah, it's a really nice sound, very fat, wide, glides and all that stuff. It's got a lot of character, but there is a lot to it. There's quite a lot to go over. So let's get into it. All the other sounds that you heard, apart from the drums, were in my motion pack, which is out now. It's in the link down below. And this bass, I am actually going to give it away at the end of the video. I'll tell you how. So let's get into this sound. Where is it? So what's going on with my computer? There we go. All right, cool. Let me just make sure you guys can see everything. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not going to recreate it right in front of you because there's a lot of the things I was doing, which was like fine tuning, just adjusting the volumes like a little bit just to my taste. But this sound will be available. You'll be able to just load this preset up. But let's look into the sound and see why it's doing what it's doing. Cool. So, the first thing is I loaded up this Diva preset, or the initial patch in Diva, which is a really nice sound as it is. You can just like a really fat sounding bass with a bit of reverb on, and it's got like a bit of lag and stuff like that. So I took that and then I adjusted some things around. But the main thing is I've got 3 oscillators. You can see they've all got a bit of volume on. If there was no volume there, it would mean that the oscillator isn't being used. So the first oscillator is a sawtooth, which is on the 16th, or not the 16th, but the octave, the lowest, one of the lowest octaves. And then the second oscillator is on the 8, which is an octave above the first oscillator. And then that is tuned to the 5th, but you can't really hear that 5th too much, which I'm going to get into in a minute. And then the last one is on the 8, which is just driving a little bit more of the bass. So I'm using 2 sawtooths and a square wave. So what I was talking about where you can't really hear that 5th too much is because I've got this sync on. So these syncs correlate to these last 2 oscillators. So what it means is this oscillator here, so if I maybe turn these down. So this oscillator going is this deep, that's kind of the fundamental of the sound, this deep sawtooth, which is now is synced to these other 2 oscillators, which means that they're gonna move at the same speed, and speed is what determines the pitch. But you can then add a little bit of detune in there, which is what I've done, and that just makes things sound a little bit clearer. So if I take off the sync, it just means that they're able to oscillate at a certain speed, so they can reach the octave, whatever you've put it at, the tuning that you've put it at. They will reach that, but then when you have those all together, you have all these oscillators tuned at different pitches. They're going to just sound dissonant because you've got too many things going on, too many harmonics. You've got sawtooths on top of sawtooths. So if you put them together, you sync them together, they're going to move at the same speed, which is just going to create a lot of clarity. In some cases, you don't need to do that, right? If you've just got maybe, if I was just using 2 oscillators, and you could maybe put this up here so it's very spaced out, it would be a bit more like a chord in a sense. Yeah, it's a lot of the time I will sync it because it just makes it sound a lot more clearer. Anyway, so the other thing that's going on, the reason it's gliding into tune or into pitch, is because of this tune mod here, which is being activated by oscillator 2, which is here. So I've got the first 2 oscillators gliding. I don't know why I didn't do the last one. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. Nah, doesn't really make much difference. These 2 are kind of the main character in the sound. But anyway, so it's being detuned to an octave below. So what happens is the sound starts an octave below and then glides up, but it does it quite quickly because I've got the attack the quickest it can be, and then I've got the decay like not too long. If I make it really long, you can hear it's taking a long time to reach to go back into the original tuning, whatever it is. Don't know how to word that correctly. And you can make it really quick where you won't really notice it. You just kind of find a sweet spot there. Let me just go back to where it was. Yeah. You don't want any sustain, or maybe you do. You could do. If I add sustain, it essentially means it's going to stay. So this detuning is going to stay there because of the sustain. But maybe you want a little bit of that there. But that's where things start getting a bit confusing because you're getting all these different detunes going on and whatever. Okay, cool. So let's look here on the filter section. So what I'm doing is I'm not using this envelope for what you normally would use it for. So normally when you open up this Diva preset, this lag is modulated with or modified with envelope 2, which means that this is basically acting as envelope 2, but it's also got a bit of lag applied to it. The lag is a delay until the sound happens or until the whatever happens. Like this, it means that the lag is kind of like doing this. So it's a little bit of time until the sound will activate. Right? So the reason why I'm talking about that is because I still wanted that feeling, that feeling, the gliding feeling. And so I applied the lag. Where are we? I applied the lag to envelope 1 instead. So I used envelope 1 as my thing that's going to give a bit of bite to the sound. So if I take off this lag and I take this LFO off, you're just going to get just the flat tone. There's no bite. And that's what's giving it the wrong. And if I take off the lag and just put it onto envelope 1, it's just going to happen straight away, right? Because the attack's just really quick. But we want that wrong. Or you could do it like that. But it's not the same, feeling. So yeah, that's what I did there. And so it's just a quick attack, kind of medium decay, and then there's a bit of sustain so that filter stays slightly open the whole time. And that's it, right? The only other thing I did is I put there's a bit of reverb on, which is what's normally on there anyway. I just think it did help quite a lot, but you do want to be careful when you're adding reverb to your basses because you're going to be adding a lot of side information in the subs, which is not what you want to do. You want the sub to be very mono and down the middle because it makes it very clear and like fat and warm and all that stuff. But I'm going to get into how I kind of worked around this in a second. So I think that's it. Yeah, that's all. A little bit of FM. There's some filter modulation, which is essentially just think of it like the whatever. So this filter is being modulated by this first oscillator. And I say whatever because you could modulate whatever you want, right? But in this case, it's the filter is being modulated by the speed of the first oscillator, and then the same again where this first oscillator, you can see it's modulating 2 and 3, so it's modulating the speed of these. But when they're synced, you don't get the massive detune. So let me try and show you. If I take this off, I mean, it's going to sound crazy because there's all this going on. But if I can show you with this. Yeah, so the volume isn't on this oscillator. The volume is on this one, right? So this is what you can hear, but then you can hear it's being modulated, it's being moved by the speed of this oscillator. It's a bit more, it's better to use when you have the oscillator moving slowly. The lower down in an octave you go, the slower something will move. And it's a bit better to use filter modulation like that. But anyway, the cool thing with it when I have everything synced is you don't get, because they're moving at the same speed now, you don't get the massive detune, but you do get some kind of effect, which is quite fun to play around with. So if we have a listen, It's fun if you're a nerd, not just fun for in general, but it's quite fun if you're a sound design nerd. You can just add a lot of bite. Which is just adding all different character to the sound, which is really nice. So yeah, a little bit of that. Cool. So let's get into the external processing. So what I did is I set up a kind of, this is kind of like having like a return channel. So something that you can send sound to and kind of create like a duplicate of the sound and then affect that sound. So that's what I've done here. I've put this audio effects rack, which is just in Ableton, and then you go onto this. Normally it might be like this or something like that. I'm not sure how it will look when you first open it up. But then if you click this, you'll see you get this kind of thing that will open up. And then if you put something on it, in fact, I should show you because it's probably confusing. Audio. So if you do this, and then if you put something on it, you get this option where it gives you this chain. And then if you duplicate, so I press Control D or right click, it's up to you. I've got these two things now. So essentially there's two EQs on this bass sound. Oh, I've already did it there. Yeah, there's two EQs on this bass sound, right? And then what I did just to make it clearer for me is I put this as dry. So the dry signal and then the wet signal. And so then you can put something on here. So I put like a reverb on here. Well, I can go back onto this one. I put a reverb on here, like with 100% wet. I just flicked through some preset reverbs, but I did end up just adjusting it anyway. And I put quite a bit of decay time, a bit of size, did a bit of EQ on it to make sure there's not too much low end on it. And then, yeah, you just bring it in to taste. So let's have a listen. Ooh. This is what you're getting. So that's what you've created on this other channel, and then you're just feeding it into the sound. So you want it to feel like all one thing, which it will, but it's just adding a bit of like a wide character. You can go crazy with this. You could put like some saturation on here. You could put whatever things you want on there, and just create this kind of. It's kind of like a layer, another layer to the bass, this mid layer. The important thing that you do is, so on the dry layer, I've kind of left it normal, just did a bit of EQ, so it's not too bright. And then on the wet channel, I made sure I did a hard cut, so this hard cut EQ, getting rid of any low end. And then that way you're just getting this, you're just making sure that you're reverbing or you're affecting this middle area. The reason why you want to do that is just you don't want to reverb like the very sub frequencies, because it just sounds not very nice. And you'll have issues if your track plays in a club, because it's not going to be mono compatible. Anyway, so the next things I did is just a bit of multiband compression. This is just bring things out, and it made it so I can control what part of the sound I want to come out a bit more. And in this case, I wanted the sub part of the sound to come through a bit more than the mid part of the sound. And then we've got a bit of saturation. This is a nice preset from Ableton. It's the saturator. It's just called a bit warmer. I don't think I did much on here. I think I just reduced a bit of the volume because it adds quite a lot of volume, and I reduced the dry wet to 30% because I didn't want it to be too saturated. Then a bit of compression. Compression is just there, like capping it, so making sure it doesn't jump out in volume too much. Especially like where it goes onto these higher notes here. I need the volume to be a bit consistent. Okay, so the last thing that I did, or the last couple of things I did, is I added this utility on here. I put bass mono, which I do all the time, making sure that everything below 125 hertz is in mono, and then adding a lot of width, well, not a lot, but I added 138%, or not 138% because it starts at 100, so 38% width. And that really did help a lot in adding a lot of width. But when I did this, I was making sure that I wasn't going too far. So I had this imager on here as I was checking. I'm not doing any effects with this imager. I'm just checking to make sure it's not like super wide and I'm not phasing or anything like that, but I'm getting this nice like wide feeling, this, or it would be like this. But it still sounds nice, but you're not getting all that character. You don't want to go too far. You don't want it to be like this. Just like a nice. Cool. And that's it. Just a bit of sidechain, like standard sidechain compression. And then the last thing I did is I just made sure that there wasn't any low sub frequencies with a bit of mid-side EQ. So you just take a normal EQ8 from Ableton or whatever you've got, whatever DAW you're using, and then you go on MS mode, which means you can look at the middle, the mid frequencies and the side frequencies. And then in this case, I wanted the side frequencies to ensure, if you look here, you can see that there's a bit of the sound is leaking through past 100 or past 95 hertz, which is not what I wanted. So you can kind of just adjust this to how much you want, and you'll hear it. Maybe you can do this so you can hear. So you can hear that that's on the side, right? This kind of low sub frequency, which can sound quite nice and warm, and there isn't like exact rules of how much side information you should have in the low end, but you just want to play it by ear. Like, all right, I don't want it to be too much because I want it to. The way that I think of it with this mono and side information, and this is important stuff, is I think of it like, as long as I'm not relying on all this side information for my song to sound good, it needs to still sound good in mono. And so if I'm like making a sound that is completely dependent on side information, then it's not going to transmit in certain, like on your phone, it's not going to transmit very well in just a lot of scenarios where they don't have stereo speakers, where they just have monitors, like in a club. So yeah, it's important. So I just made sure that I'm not taking away too much of the side information, because that's going to make it not sound so warm and wide, but I'm making sure that there's not too much. So just like here. And there we go. Cool. So yeah, this whole thing, this rack, will be available in my Patreon. That's how I'm going to give it away. So if you go to the Patreon, which is linked down below, it will be for all tiers. So you can sign up for £3 a month, which is like a coffee, and you'll get this download. If you're thinking of just signing up, downloading this and then cancelling the subscription, fair enough, but could you please at least give for at least a month, which is just £3, just because obviously this has took me hours and hours to do. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of years of me learning sound design, so I'd appreciate if you gave at least £3 for the sound. So yeah, thank you very much guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, make sure that you subscribe and you like and comment, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.